Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The New York Rangers defeat the Minnesota Wild 5-4 in overtime. And it was Vincent Trocheck scoring the game-winning goal and assisted by Artemi Panarin, who really was the driving force in this victory. It was not a pretty game at all. Rangers made a lot of mistakes, a lot of defensive miscues. The power play continues to be absolutely dreadful, and to the point where you'd almost prefer to decline the power play if that were an option. But the Rangers did get a lot of offensive opportunities. They outshot Minnesota quite a bit, and did get the much needed 2 points. At the end of the day, they needed to get both, and they got them. And so they are now tied with Montreal for that final playoff spot. Montreal does have a game in hand. Also, Columbus is very much in play as well, as the Rangers are 2 points ahead of Columbus, and Columbus has 2 games in hand. So just trying to kind of stay in there, which they're doing somehow, some way. It was the NHL debut of Gabe Perreault, who didn't look too out of place. Really, his most notable potential play was early in the game where he tried to set up Alexis Lafreniere, uh, didn't quite connect, and it was partially deflected by Nat Zuccarello, and Lafreniere lost balance and fell. It's a play that Perreault could have taken a shot, but that is part of Perreault's game. And in some ways, you could say it's fitting that he would be a Ranger because they are, over the years have been a team that certainly has passed up shooting opportunities and trying to go east-west, but still, that's his skill set. High IQ, good vision, and excited to see what he can bring for the remainder of the season. Um, but a lot to discuss in this game, good and bad. It's The thing is, if the Rangers play like this on most nights, they're going to lose. That's just the way it is. I mean, there's just way, way, way too many mistakes made. Again, it's a combination of just horrendous turnovers, defensive structure, players are left wide open, and then this power play is truly horrific. 2 for its last 41 in their past 15 games. Hard to fathom just how bad it's become. And if I'm Peter Laviolette, I know that, he says, and it's not completely false that he has made some tweaks, but I'm talking wholesale changes personnel wise. And what those combinations are, I'm not going to lay those out exactly. We know the players that need to be mainstays, right? We obviously the Panarins of the world, the Foxes, but beyond that, I'm open to trying a lot of different combinations, really, and that involves the younger players. I know Perreault got chances on the second power play. I thought Brennan Hoffman was one of the Rangers' better players in this game. I like to see him get a chance in the power play. Will Cooley, who won, not surprisingly, the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award as voted by the fans. So congrats to Will Cooley for that. That was deserved. I think he was the clear favorite, but he's lost his power play chances. So that's where I'm at with that. I think that more things need to be mixed up at this point. It can't get much worse. And I think there are some younger players waiting in the wings that deserve more of an opportunity than some of the veterans that we see time and time again get those chances. The Zibanejad, the Kreiders, the Trochecks. I just think that maybe they should switch that up. But look, Rangers outshot Minnesota 39-24, which is unlike the Rangers. I mean, they're usually the team that has been getting outshot, but got off to a pretty strong start. First period, they outshot the Wild 18-7 and actually walked out of that period down 2-1. That's just how it goes in the NHL. But for the Rangers, it's glad they won. I want them to stay in this race for as long as they can, but it's hard to be overly optimistic. And look, I think with Montreal, as far as the playoffs are concerned, Montreal was able to pick up a massive win over Florida. In fact, they swept Florida, winning all 4 games, which is really, really big to the playoff picture. Whereas the Rangers, in their 2 games with Florida at this point, have 0 points, and they have one more game left with the Panthers, their second to last game of the season. But those are 8 points by Montreal against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And really, last night's game, what was a tough one where Florida was very close to winning regulation with 8.4 seconds left on one of the most random goals you'll ever see in that situation. Montreal ties it up and then wins in overtime. So all that to say, Rangers have their work cut out for them. And with 7 games to go, realistically, and this is an ever-changing sort of projection. But now I think you have to go at the very least 4-2-1 to me the rest of the way. It's more of a fun practice and exercise than anything because again, it's who knows? But I think what I'm trying to say is like if you go 4-3 from here on out, that I don't think is going to get you in. Montreal has a very, very favorable schedule the rest of the way. Doesn't mean they're going to win those games, but they do. Another thing to consider before we get into this Minnesota Wild game is the fact that the Rangers, if they beat the Devils on Saturday, which will not be easy to do, um, it would be their first 3-game winning streak since November. And I've been harping on this for a while. So it's another opportunity to do that. And we will see if that will happen. But they are 1 game away from doing it. But we've seen it before, and they have failed to do so. And again, like I said, New Jersey, despite losing Jack Hughes for the season, despite being really shorthanded, they don't have their full squad. Jacob Markstrom has not been very good lately. All that to say, if the Rangers play like they did in this game, they will lose to the Devils. That's just what it is. That's a step up in competition. Not that Minnesota's a bad team. They're not, but with no Kaprizov, because this is a team that's dealing with injuries as well. You know, Minnesota's got their flaws, and they're likely to still make the playoffs in the Western Conference, but they've taken a slide. Um, and so as far as this game goes, Philip Gustafson in net versus Igor Shesterkin. No surprises there. Minnesota was coming off of 2 straight losses to the New Jersey Devils. The last one being in New Jersey, a game which ended, I believe, in the shootout. So a couple of past regulation losses in a row for Minnesota. But the lines were tweaked a bit, right? I mean, naturally, Gabe Perreault comes into the lineup, and so Nick Aube-Kubel leaves the lineup. Um, and so these are the way it was. This is the lines, and really the only one that stayed exactly the same from the last game was Panarin, Trocheck, Othman. And that really was probably their most dangerous line, um, by and large, I would say. But Gabe Perreault ends up on a line with JT Miller and Alexis Lafreniere. And what was a surprise, but a pleasant one, and there's still changes that need to be made, was Chris Kreider moves to the fourth line. And ironically, Kreider did score in this game. He actually got his 20th goal of the season. Um, so the third line, in essence, was Zibanejad centering Cooley and Brodzinski, with the fourth line being Carrick centering Kreider and Berard. Um, I would expect them to stick with those lines next game. The only thing that I'm thinking, like just a thought for me, I don't want to touch Panarin, Trocheck, Othman. I'm leaving that alone. I prefer, look, if it were me, I'd rather Kreider not even be in the lineup. That's my own, preference. And for example, when Matt Rempe and/or Adam Edstrom come back, that would be the guy I'd take out of the lineup, but it would likely be Berard. Um, is I would flip Lafreniere and Cooley. I don't think it's a major problem the way they have it. I don't like. I don't think it's egregious, but that would be what I would go for. I think that could be a more effective way to balance out some of the lines and stylistically how these lines look. I don't expect them to do that, but just a thought. And it would be a simple 1-for-1 switch. But glad that Perreault wasn't stuck with like Kreider and Zibanejad. I don't think that would have been good. I like the JT Millers as center. I think that's a good way for him to start out. So, and the defense remained the same. And look, and there's a lot to discuss for the defense. Keandre Miller had his classic sort of, there were some good times. I mean, he had a goal and an assist. And there were some bad times. He had a very, very bad turn. I mean, there was a couple of plays, where it led to goals for Minnesota that he was directly responsible for. But really, Carson Soucy, it's a hard watch. And he's a former Minnesota Wild player. It's a hard watch. I would prefer to get Zach Jones or even Calvin DeHaan in there for Soucy. I'm not expecting it. I don't think it's going to happen. But it's just, oof. And I don't know. Because sometimes with him, like the stats don't necessarily end up horrendous, but man, just like the turnovers, how slow he is, it's really, really brutal. And him being Adam Fox's partner doesn't make things any better. Although you had to take that with a little grain of salt because Fox, over the course of a game, you'll see him a lot with other defensive partners, not just Soucy. But look, everything being equal, that is the defensive pairing. I do like Vakanainen and Schneider as your third pair. I am getting Vakanainen back in the lineup. I agree with. I've let that just kind of be what it is for the most part. But again, I do think that Soucy's problematic, and I think that Zach Jones would give you something a little bit better overall, and he's not without his flaws. And then even Calvin DeHaan, but I think with the DeHaan thing, that's long past the point of him being in there. He hasn't played for so long now. It would be for him to surpass Zach Jones would be pretty surprising. But anyway, this game starts out with the Rangers really playing a good brand of hockey. I thought they looked good. They were taking it to Minnesota. They were unable to score, but it was a good, like, this was a lot better, and the Rangers have had a lot of troubles with their starts, home and away. And obviously, we know the Rangers have not really been that good at home overall, but they came out playing well. But then the whole thing kind of turns on an Alexis Lafreniere penalty, and just a needless one at that for Lafreniere. At 8:15, he interferes with Ryan Hartman. Just unnecessary in that situation. No excuse for it. And it leads to a Minnesota power play goal. And so at the 9-minute mark, Gustav Nyquist scores his 10th goal of the season for Marcus Johansson and Matt Zuccarello. And it was there's three players to kind of put some blame on here. I'm going to say mainly Vincent Trocheck, but I'm not even trying to do a pecking order here, but Vincent Trocheck is the one that turns it over, which leads to basically what becomes like a 2-on-0 in front. But to kind of start it chronologically, Keandre Miller breaks his stick. And Miller in that situation has to make absolute sure the puck is cleared. Now, look, it looked like it was going to be, and that's where Adam Fox has the puck. Fox could have just fired it out himself. Instead, he passes it to Trocheck, who wasn't expecting the pass. And then Trocheck gets a very weak whiff sort of attempt at getting rid of it. So it's kind of the three of them. Keandre Miller breaks his stick and needs to just stay back before the puck is out. Adam Fox should have just cleared it himself. And then Trocheck, even though he was put in a little bit of a tough position, needs to do a better job as well and not turn it over. And there's nothing Shesterkin could do. An easy sort of tic-tac goal between the three of them, leading to Nyquist getting the power play goal and giving Minnesota that 1-0 lead. Special teams has been very, very problematic for the Rangers of late. And if that continues, they will not be making the playoffs. But the Rangers have a quick response, and that we have seen a bit. I guess I think back to that Vancouver game, which also reminds me, this is the second game of the NHL season in which a game was tied 4 times. I would have thought there would have been more than that. The other game was one that I've mentioned, one that I believe I've mentioned here. And if I haven't, I will now. It's that Rangers-Montreal game in January. The game in which the Rangers lost to the Canadiens. And that was sort of like this, naturally. And the Rangers lost that game. I think that final was as well 5-4. So weird. Of the 2 games in all of the NHL that have had the game tied at 4 different occasions, the Rangers were involved in both of them. So Braden Schneider ties it up at 12:45. His 6th goal of the season from Vaakanainen and Artemi Panarin. And a nice play by Othman to get it to Panarin. And then Panarin just kind of does his magic. Gets to the middle of the ice. A bad angle shot by Vaakanainen ends up going the other way to Braden Schneider. And a really nice alert play by Schneider to quickly, with an open net, essentially shooting it in. And Schneider scored against Minnesota last time. He scores again here. And so a nice job by the defenseman getting in on the offensive act, and it ties it at 1. But Minnesota takes the lead pretty soon thereafter. At the 15-minute mark, Brock Faber scores his 8th goal of the season from Johansson and Gaudreau. And this was a play where the Rangers lose the battle in the corner. And again, Lafreniere was kind of a victim of that. Again, it didn't really, not a good game for Alexis Lafreniere. He was in there. And Faber has a lot of room. Matt Zuccarello's in front, and the puck deflects off of Gabe Perreault's stick. And it's a combination of bad luck on his part. It would have been wise for him to not get that stick on there. But again, there was good intentions. He was the only one that was in the middle of the ice, which give him credit for that at least. But it does go off his stick and through Shesterkin. Now, if Perreault doesn't get a stick on it, it's possible Zuccarello deflects it. So it was bad all the way around. And Minnesota takes a 2-1 lead right there. So it's a 2-1 game going to the second period, but the Rangers score early in the second. And it would be Keandre Miller scoring his 7th goal of the season from JT Miller and Borgen at 2:51. So Borgen, being aggressive, taking some shots towards the net, one that kind of deflects off of JT Miller and goes into the corner, and Keandre Miller just fires it in. Bad angle, but impressive nonetheless. I'm sure if you're Gustafsson, if you're in a better position, you probably stop that. But again, Keandre ties it up at 2. And then the Rangers actually take the lead. And it's Chris Kreider scoring his 20th goal of the season unassisted. So put it in, again, for Chris Kreider's career, another 20-goal season. This one probably one of the ugliest, if not the ugliest, but 20 goals nonetheless for Kreider. And it was really a bad play in front by the defenseman Chisholm for the Minnesota Wild, where he kind of loses control of it. Gustafson can't get it, and Kreider's just all alone in front. All he has to do is just kind of elevate it on the backhand, and that's exactly what he does. So right place, right time for Kreider, scores on the fourth line, and makes it 3-2. And then things are even getting better. Rangers get their first, well, as you'd hope. Matt Boldy's called for roughing Brennan Othman. After Othman got a really good opportunity in front of the net to score, he didn't, and he's still looking for his first NHL goal. Boldy is called for roughing. So the Rangers get a power play. There were some initial chances, to be fair. It gets forgotten, but there were. But then a just really, really inexcusable turnover by Vincent Trocheck leading to a goal. So Vincent Trocheck with 2 turnovers that lead to goals. So as much as I want to give him praise for what eventually comes, which is the game-winning overtime goal for Trocheck, he was awful before then. And just a bad job overall by the whole power play unit. Trocheck, really being the main culprit, but it leads to basically kind of a 3-on-2 the other way. And an a really nice shot and a goal for Marcus Johansson. His 9th goal of the season, shorthanded from Nyquist and Faber. So not only are the Rangers not scoring power play goals, lately they're giving up shorthanded goals. It has been a negative for them to be on the power play, just crazy, and changes the momentum. It really did. The Rangers had a chance to maybe make it 4-2, and now it's a tie game. And then soon thereafter, it appeared as if Matt Zuccarello had scored, but they correctly ruled that it was a goalie interference that nullified the goal. Ryan Hartman went in there, and Carson Soucy was, battling with him, but Hartman did too much. Shesterkin couldn't go from side to side easily, and so the goal's off the board. And Minnesota at this one is really taking it to the Rangers. Momentum has flipped. However, the Rangers take the lead by the end of the period, and it's Artemi Panarin scoring his 34th goal of the season unassisted at 18:56. A bad turnover by Marco Rossi leads to Panarin going on the breakaway, and on a wrist shot, he scores past Gustafson to give the Rangers a 4-3 lead going to the third. However, another quick response right away in the third, and ironically, it is Rossi at the 22-second mark of the third, scoring his 23rd goal of the season from Matt Boldy, tying the game up before. An egregious penalty by Keandre Miller. It is just so frustrating, just terrible. And Will Borgen's kind of caught in a bad place, and it leads to a really easy goal. A great save by Shesterkin on Boldy, but nothing he can do as Rossi easily taps it in. Another bad play by the Rangers. Keandre specifically makes it 4-4 right there. And then in the third, you do get some penalties involved. At 9:01, Will Cooley, he had to prevent a goal. He hooks Marco Rossi, but the Rangers actually kill it off, and they get a power play themselves. Ryan Hartman interferes with JT Miller, but the Rangers don't score on this power play. And to make things worse, before that power play is even over, at 12:23, Marcus Johansson trips Keandre Miller to the point where you had a 5-on-3 for about 20 seconds or so, 15 to 25 seconds, give or take. And 5-on-3 doesn't do anything, and then they don't do anything 5-on-4. And then again, another power play at 15:52, Marcus Foligno trips Keandre Miller. So Keandre Miller drawing back-to-back tripping penalties, and that power play doesn't do shit either. And some of the best plays that I can remember was Minnesota shorthanded, had chances to score and didn't. So just bad all the way around, very reminiscent of the Anaheim game, but just in general, this power play has taken on a life of its own. It is one of the worst in the National Hockey League. With a personnel like this, with the amount of options that they theoretically have, it's bad. I would give Gabe Perreault even more of a chance than just the second unit. When he was on earlier in the game, I think it was the power play in the second period where Minnesota got the short-handed goal. I think that's when it was. Perreault had set up Brodzinski. Right, it was. It was after the short-handed goal. Perreault tries to set up Brodzinski and hits the post. You can tell that Perreault is at his best on that near that right circle. Just kind of, and it's one of those things. Kind of reminds you. It's not the same, but like of Zuccarello on that right side, where you have to respect him. It's almost like Panarin when he's on the left side. Because you know of what he's capable of and his vision, you kind of have to play off him, and it lets other players get open. So just something to think about there. I don't expect him to do it, but we'll see. But ultimately, this game goes to overtime, tied at 4. And what was a smart move by Peter Laviolette, and I've been critical of a lot of the moves or non-moves he's made lately. He has JT Miller start in overtime with Panarin and Keandre. The Keandre decision is kind of interesting. You'd think it would have been Fox, but they have liked Keandre as the starting guy. It did work this time, but that if it didn't, I probably would have criticized it. But JT Miller wins the faceoff. Now look, the Vincent Trocheck, who I'm pretty sure had pretty good faceoff number. Let me see. Trocheck, I think he might have been perfect, Trocheck. He had 100% success rate. Um, but they went JT Miller, who also is good at faceoffs. Either way, just being proactive because JT Miller doesn't normally play with Panarin, at least not these days, right? Early when JT Miller was acquired, they did. But the point is that JT Miller gets taken out and Trocheck comes on. So that was strictly a face-off move. I like that because the Rangers kept possession and held it until they won. The opposite of the Anaheim Ducks game. And it is a winner at the 24-second mark of overtime. Vincent Trocheck, his 22nd goal of the season from Panarin and Keandre Miller. A great, great play by Panarin. A three-point night for Panarin, who has really been the driving offensive force for this team for the last month plus. And Vincent Trocheck makes up for some critical mistakes. He is able to just get a little bit of a piece on it. Panarin makes the moves, fakes out some Minnesota players, Marco Rossi being one of them. I think Faber and Boldy were also on the ice, and Trocheck gets a little bit of position. The puck kind of goes through Gustafsson, and Trocheck just gets a piece of it to give the Rangers a 5-4 win. So that's the Rangers are now 3-7 in the 3-on-3 overtime. 2 of those 3 wins, weirdly, have been against the Minnesota Wild. And so now, like I said, it's a big game against New Jersey. Not that I think there's any chance of this, but if there were, as far as the Rangers catching the Devils, which is a total long shot, that would require the Rangers absolutely having to win in regulation against the Devils. They're 8 points behind New Jersey, and the Rangers do have a game in hand. But this will be interesting. The last time the Rangers played in New Jersey was one of the most embarrassing games of the season. It was that game right before the Christmas break where the Rangers were totally annihilated. It was where Chris Kreider was a healthy scratch. Devils look a little bit different now. They were at their peak at that point, but they've really held their own since Jack Hughes has been out. But naturally, I keep on saying, like, they aren't as dangerous as they were. But I know this is going to be a tough game, and it's a critical game against a division rival, a team. The Rangers have had struggles against playoff teams this season. Devils are going to be one of them. And the Rangers are looking for that 3-game winning streak. It's been elusive to them. They have not had it since November. So, look, what's on the line. The Rangers are going to need to be a lot better than they were against Minnesota if they're going to want to win this game. But they continue to just kind of stay in it somehow. And the Rangers needed 2 points tonight, and that's exactly what they got. Artemi Panarin sets up Vincent Trocheck for the overtime winner to give the Rangers a 5-4 win in overtime. And now they'll have a couple of days off before a Saturday matinee game against the New Jersey Devils.